Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the main event. Let's get ready to rumble!
Welcome to the Strictly Business Podcast with John Stanko and Mike Ritz.
Y'all ready for this?
It's not personal. It's strictly business.
Welcome, everyone, to the Strictly Business Podcast. John Stanko here solo, as Mike Ritz does the proper thing and taking his girlfriend Monique out for a great weekend. So happy birthday, Monique. Happy birthday to you and good luck in school. And Quinnipiac, I want to give a quick shout out to you. So it's just me, John Stanko, today. I have Mike Ritz's game picks in front of me. I have my own, and we're going to run through them quickly to keep you up to date on who we selected for Week 2 of the NFL. It should be known that both me and Mike took the Pittsburgh Steelers on Thursday, and unfortunately, that did not work out too well. As the game itself was a dud, Pittsburgh played pretty poorly, and not a good opening Thursday night game. Excuse me, for CBS. But let's dive right into this Sunday, and let's dive right into my team, the New England Patriots. They are going up against the Minnesota Vikings. Due to the new recent developments that have happened with Adrian Peterson and him being indicted on child abuse, he has been deactivated for this game by the Vikings, which is the proper move on their part. I was worried about this game heading into it because the Patriots were so bad against No. Sean Moreno and the Dolphins running game, and they were going up against the best running back in the NFL. Now, without AP, I'm a little bit more confident the Patriots can win this one out. Still not entirely sure, but I do have the Patriots winning and improving to 1-1. Mike Ritz agrees with me. He just cannot see the Patriots losing 2 in a row. So he agrees with me that the New England Patriots will win. So we agree there. And moving on, let's go to sticking to the AFC East. The Dolphins versus the Bills. Mike himself is incredibly torn with this one, solely for the fact that he absolutely loves the Mecca, Ralph Wilson Stadium in Buffalo. However, he's going to go with Miami, which is the proper decision. Because Miami actually looked good in the win against the New England Patriots. The Bills, if you look at the stats, they didn't play that well against the Bears. They had less than 200 passing yards, and they were only, I think, 4 for 12 on third down, so they did not play absolutely great. Mike Ritz points out that the Bills are too one-dimensional, and if Miami can stop the run, Fred Jackson, C.J. Spiller, then they should be all right. So we both have Miami moving up to 2-0 on the season so far. And now let's go down to a game that me and Mike actually disagree with. We disagree on 2 games this week, and this is the Jacksonville Jaguars heading to Washington. Washington looked absolutely anemic, if you will, in terms of their offense against Houston. Granted, J.J. Watt is an absolute beast. I mean, who blocks an extra point? And then you got the Jacksonville Jaguars, who had a 17-point lead against the Eagles, yet squandered it and were outscored 34-0 in the second half. Just absolutely awful. But Mike Ritz sees Deshaun Jackson as an X factor, and he doesn't see the Jaguars being able to put up enough offense to hang with the Redskins. So he has the Redskins in a tough game, but he has the Redskins coming out on top. I disagree. I have the Jacksonville Jaguars coming out on top in a close one. I think that first half from Jacksonville really showed me something, and my crazy pick of them going 6-10 on the year, I still believe in it. I still think this team has more talent than people think. I think Toby Gerhart getting hurt last week kind of took the rhythm out of their offense for a little bit. He will be healthy today. He will be back. And I think he's got to play well for Jacksonville to play well. But I got Jacksonville coming out on top in a close one. Then let's go to the next game. The Dallas Cowboys heading to Tennessee. This game is really interesting for me. It was actually tougher to pick than I think Mike indicated. But Mike says it's the Titans pretty easily. He says that Dallas is too much of a mess, and he has to stick with his Titans, seeing how they finished second in the division this year. He says that a healthy Jake Locker is too dangerous, and Kendall Wright is an underweighted wide receiver, and Sankey is no slouch at running back. He also points out that we know that sixth grade girls flag football offense can put up 3 TDs on the Cowboys defense, and you need to see the Cowboys step up on D for them to pick them in any game. I don't know if the defense is that bad. I really thought the Cowboys showed some life in the second half against Chicago. Granted, Tony Romo's 3 interceptions were not good. He was forcing the ball way too much. Dez Bryant got laid out on one of those interceptions. But with that being said, I'm going to go with Tennessee, but this game was tougher for me to pick just because I'm not a huge believer in the Titans, and maybe they will prove me wrong, and they probably will. But the Cowboys are 3.5-point underdogs. Colin Cowherd says take the Cowboys with the points. He says he still takes the Titans in the game. I do the same exact thing. I have the Titans winning by 3, 20-17. And now let's get to Mike Ritz's New York Giants. To quote him, he is so down on this team right now, but if they were going to win a game, it would be this one. They are at home, another week of practice under the belt, and did the Cardinals do anything to impress you on Monday night? Andre Ellington isn't 100%, but with that being said, Mike Ritz is still going with the Cards on the road because he doesn't think the Giants team has it all yet. He thinks it's going to be a close game, but he's gonna go against his Giants. He hopes he's wrong. But he's going to go with the Cardinals. I agree with him. I was impressed with the fourth quarter of the Cardinals. I was impressed how Larry Fitzgerald could only have, I think it was 22 yards receiving, and their offense was still able to come back in the fourth quarter. I think that also had to do with the fact that San Diego really lost control of that game, and me and Mike both agree that San Diego more lost that game than, I guess you could say, Arizona won it. But I still think you got to give credit to Arizona for taking the opportunity to come back and get the win. So I have Arizona winning by 10, 27-17. I think Mike has a little bit closer than that. So we'll have to see what happens there in that one, but we both have Arizona. Now let's get to the game that is both of our lock of the week. We both survived last week with our locks of the week. He had the Steelers and I had the Eagles. We both have the Saints. Mike had firsthand look at the Browns offense last week when he was watching at work the Steelers versus the Browns, and I think it was obvious to many that they struggled at times. But I think the main thing here is does anyone see the Saints going 2-0 with that type of team, with Sean Payton at that coach, with Drew Brees at quarterback? I don't think anyone sees them going 2-0. 0-2. They lost a heartbreaker to Atlanta, a great game. So we both have them winning this game. The only question is they don't do well in the Northeast. They don't do well on the road. So that's the one struggle. And Cleveland's defense isn't bad. And maybe they'll have some life with knowing that Josh Gordon's suspension is 10 games. However, no Ben Tate at running back. He is out. Granted, they did okay without him last week. I still think that New Orleans just has too much offensively. And I think they'll be able to get the win. Both me and Mike agree there. And now let's get to, in my opinion, the toughest game of the week by far, but an absolutely great game. A fantastic game. The Falcons heading to the Bengals. Mike points out that the Falcons are coming off a huge win against one of the best teams in football, the Saints, and the Bengals are coming off a huge road win against a division rival in the Ravens. He says that the Bengals have so much talent that Mike cannot go against them at home, so he's going to pick the Bengals in a close one. I disagree. I'm going to go with Atlanta. Maybe it's Matt Ryan and that Boston College magic, because last night Boston College pulls off a huge upset against USC, so maybe that Atlanta can pull off the nice win on the road here against the Bengals, but I got Atlanta going 28-24. I'm so excited for this matchup between Julio Jones and A.J. Green, two of the best wide receivers not named Calvin Johnson, Megatron. So really excited to see that matchup. This game's going to be, I think, pretty high scoring. Both offenses can really light it up. But I got Atlanta winning a close one. He's got Cincinnati winning a close one. So we disagree on those two games. Now let's get to the Lions and the Panthers. Cam Newton is starting for the Carolina Panthers. So that is very, very good news for them. We were reminded how good their defense was last week when they absolutely shut down Tampa Bay, and they embarrassed me when I picked the Bucs to win that game, and Carolina was like, not having any of that. But with that being said, Detroit is a much, much, much more talented and diverse offense than Tampa Bay, especially at this point. Matthew Stafford looked phenomenal against the New York Giants. I'm not sure if that was the Giants' defense or if that was the new offensive system, but he looked efficient. He didn't throw the ball up for grabs many times, and Calvin Johnson was unstoppable once again. I got Detroit winning a close one, 20-17. Mike points out that this is one of the best defenses going up against one of the top offenses in the league. Mike doesn't think that the Panthers have enough offensively to keep up, and Cam Newton won't be 100%. While he is going to play, he's not going to be 100%, so he's going with the Lions as well. And now Mike goes to a game that he thinks was a pretty tough one to pick, the Rams versus the Bucks, just for the simple fact that the Bucks they were decimated with injuries last week. Doug Martin was injured and stuff like that. But he's going to go with the Bucks having enough at home to get the win. Just because simply St. Louis looked so anemic offensively. The only way the Rams win this game, Mike says, is if Zach Stacy has a solid game. But he thinks Lovie Smith gets his first win with the Bucks. I have to agree once again. The Minnesota Vikings trounced the Rams. Absolutely destroyed them. It wasn't even a close competition. You got to go with the Bucks here. Granted they didn't look that good against Carolina, but you got to go with the Bucks and the fact that they have a quarterback who's going to be okay. He's not going to be great, but I think he's going to be better than Sean Hill or Davis for St. Louis, whichever one decides to play. Now we go to a game that I think me and Mike disagree on in terms of how close it will be, of how competitive it will be. Seattle at San Diego. This is quoting Mike verbatim. Is this even a question? Seattle really looked flawless last week against the Packers, minus the fact that they can field a punt. This is true, but granted, they are switching up their special teams punt returner, so that's changing this week. The Chargers took a tough L on Monday Night Football, all because Rizzo doesn't know how to keep his eyes on the ball, and it's going to get even tougher this week against Seattle. Seattle is too good of a team, and they're going to handle the Chargers. Seattle cruises. I disagree on the fact that Seattle is going to cruise against San Diego. I don't want to say it's a trap game for Seattle, but you're coming off a huge win against Green Bay. You've had a little bit of extra time off, and San Diego is starving for a win, because if they start 0-2, I think I read this stat that only 11% of the teams that start 0-2 make it to the playoffs. So I'm really curious to see how well San Diego comes out and plays. I think this game will be closer than people think. Because if you look at it, San Diego did a good job of holding the Arizona Cardinals offense, and they got some weapons on the outside. The big key is, are they going to be able to stop Marshawn Lynch, who was dominant, absolutely dominant against Green Bay? That's going to be the question. But I do have Seattle winning. I think I have them winning by 10 or 11 with a late touchdown or field goal. But otherwise, the game's going to be competitive for most of the game. But we both agree that Seattle wins there. Excuse me, I have a cold, so sorry for the sniffles. Let's go to the next game, about a game between two teams that are not in terms of a playoff chances very high. But granted, one team did look very good week one, and that's the Houston Texans, and they're heading to Oakland. Houston's defense handled Washington pretty well. Mike says that they impressed him with no question. And Mike says Oakland should just move to the SEC to try and win some games. I'm not sure Oakland could win the SEC. Derek Carr is going to be rattled up by J.J. Watt. That I agree with 100%, Mike. And that is why I'm going with Houston as well. We both agree with Houston. J.J. Watt is going to feast on a rookie quarterback on an offensive line that's not very good in Oakland. So you know what? We both got the Texans winning this one pretty easily. Now let's get to a game that has some implication with our boys this week, if you will, in terms of our friends, the New York Jets at the Green Bay Packers. Tommy Simon, a huge Packers fans, and Ronan McClory and Steve Colto, huge Jets fans. Mike says that I don't think this one will be all the laughter. The Jets defense will hold the Packers, but with that being said, the Packers are going to be vengeful, looking to really prove people wrong who are doubting them about their week one loss to Seattle. And Mike points out for the Jets, I feel like they should have won that game against the Raiders last week by 3 touchdowns, not just 5 points. So the Jets got to play a flawless game to stay in this one. And the fact that it's in Lambeau Field doesn't help the New York Jets at all. Me and Mike both agree that the Green Bay Packers will win this one. I got them winning by 2 touchdowns. So Green Bay Packers will improve to 1-1 on the year. Now let's get to a game that I think we're surprised with how easy it was for us to pick. Me and Mike both agree that the Chiefs lack of execution week 1 was a big surprise at home nonetheless. And the fact that they dug themselves a hole and they're going up against Peyton Manning, in Denver, and also the Chiefs lost 2 of their best defensive players with ACL injuries as well. It's not a good thing at all. There's nothing good to look at here if you're Kansas City. You better feed that ball to Jamal Charles because you didn't do it week 1 against Tennessee. So Kansas City's got to control the clock and just wear down the Denver defense if they want any chance of staying in it. But I think Denver wins this one pretty easy. So let's go to the Sunday night game. It's the Bears versus the 49ers. Me and Mike both completely agree. He texted me this point yesterday, and I couldn't agree with him more. For a team whose defense was supposed to have a lot of holes in it to start the year, it didn't seem like they did in Dallas. Mike's talking about San Francisco. They answered a lot of questions, and I was one of the doubters in terms of 49ers. Would they take a dip this year? Week 1 seemed not to think so. Their offense also looked great. Granted, you have to put an asterisk next to it because it was against the Dallas Cowboys. But the fact of the matter for me is the 49ers answered more questions week 1, and the Bears raised more questions about themselves, but lost to Buffalo week 1. So you got to go with the team that you have more faith in right now, that has less question marks, and that's San Francisco. I think it will be close. 24-21, I have the score. But Mike says, look for Frank Gore to establish the run early, and the 49ers will take control, and they'll win the Sunday night game. Now let's get to Monday night, a fantastic Monday night game. Absolutely fantastic. The Indianapolis Colts going up against the Philadelphia Eagles. Listen, ESPN scored a what could be a classic here because I think that this game is going to be high scoring, back and forth between 2 young quarterbacks who are playing well. But me and Mike both agree that we're going to go with the Colts over the Philadelphia Eagles. If Mike points out, if the Colts can limit LaShawn McCoy and force them to be one-dimensional in the pass, the Colts will be able to win it. But he points out that if the game was in Philly, he'd be thinking about it differently. And that's where I completely agree. This is a coin flip game, 50-50. I can't pick a winner or a loser in terms of just talent-wise. These teams are so close, and I think that both the offenses are so talented. But the fact that it's at home, Indianapolis plays well at home, I'm going to give them a 1-touchdown advantage, 38-31. I have the final score. So I got the Colts winning it, but that's a coin flip game and a great game to stay up for on Monday night. So there you go. There are our Week 2 picks. Me and Mike will both be back next week to do our usual debate and talk about which teams we got going. Both of us went 10-6 last week. Not bad for Week 1 when you don't know what to expect from teams. We disagree on 2 games this week. We disagree on Atlanta going to Cincinnati. I have Atlanta. Mike has Cincinnati. And then we disagree on Jacksonville and Washington as well. I have the Jaguars. He has Washington. So we'll see what happens there. And everyone, enjoy Week 2 of the NFL season. And we'll be sure to catch up with you next week with our recap from Week 2 and our predictions for Week 3. So thank you, everyone, for listening. Be sure to follow us on our Facebook page, the Strictly Business Podcast with Mike Ritz and John Stanko. Subscribe to our YouTube channel via the same name. Or follow us both on Twitter, both of our usernames on our Facebook page. So thank you, everyone, for listening. Enjoy Week 2, and talk to you next week.